As presumed, I imagine everyone, or at least most people watching this video, know what the death penalty is. Hi, I'm Omnilian, and I hope to give and get a million pieces of information. This is the first episode of my series, and I hope to produce a lot more in the coming weeks. The Merriam-Webster dictionary states that the death penalty is defined as death as a punishment given by a court of law for very serious crimes, capital punishment. Now that we know what our basis for a definition is, let's start. The question we will be discussing is if the death penalty should be abolished. The problem is most asked in the USA, which makes sense as over half the countries in the world do not have the death penalty. The death penalty is given to criminals who have been convicted of a serious crime, usually such as murder, genocide, rape, and different horrible crimes. The main issue is the aspect of playing a higher role and whether or not the prisoner wants death or wants to stay in prison and wants to stay alive. Let's look at the key sections I will be using to answer this question and hopefully provide you a basis of what your answer would be. So I'll split this video up into 7 different sections here on out. The first section is called Omnilian, which I will discuss my point of view. Second is the affirmative, where we will discuss the side saying that the death penalty should be abolished. The third section will be negative, discussing why the death penalty should not be abolished. We will have research where I'll be giving some evidence that will hopefully provide you the basis for your answer. The general consensus is looking through social media or asking people from like Reddit or online sources or some people I know in person what they think on the issue. Summary is where I'll give a summary of what we discussed in the video and the key points. And the answer is where I'll give not necessarily a definitive answer, but an answer to the question and kind of leave off a conclusion for the video. So without further ado, let's go into the first section called Omnilian. All right, on to the section called Omnilian. Before doing a lot of research, here's my view on this matter. Now, I have many factors weighing on my decision. Instead of making you wait for the answer, here it is. Overall, yes. In my opinion, the death penalty should be abolished. Now, obviously, there's no correct answer to this matter, as there's many things that go into it, and there's many people's point of view, and there's a lot of factors judging on one's opinion. But overall, I am on the affirmative side of this argument. I think the death penalty should not be a staple and should have a very good reason, and in most cases, it isn't. Jail is a horrible place, no matter which way you put it, where people get killed, stabbed, raped, fraud, a bunch of things that happen in jail. And it's usually because of crimes that the individual commits or a group of people. Usually people in jail have been known to steal, kill, rape, fraud, and other acts of violence, and many other things. You can name it, basically. Time spent in jail is measured by the extent of the crime you have committed. And with that, many things happen in jail, such as fights, murders, stabs, gang violence, and other things that make jail the closest thing to hell on earth, in my opinion. The purpose of jail is to correct behaviors and protect the public from the people inside the jail, and it serves as a form of justice in quotation marks. Stories I heard of people in jail describe it as hell, and they would never want to go back there ever again, as it is basically kill or be killed, survival of the fittest, which is basically your mindset going into jail needs to be if you want to survive there. Before I get off topic, let's go back to the main point. The death penalty serves as the pinnacle of punishments in the prison system, signifying a person shouldn't be on this earth anymore. And there's 3 main big reasons why I disagree with this, and I don't think it's reliable. The first is I simply believe death is a way of escape. Imagine you've killed 27 people and you are going to be put on death row. You spent 20 years in jail, and jail was horrible. You got beat, stabbed, a bunch of things, and it is hell on earth, and you went out of it. Now you're going to be able to eat a 5-course meal and get a lethal injection and be able to die in a somewhat peaceful manner. Does it make sense? No. If you are on death row, I see it as a way to escape. I mean, a lot of people do not want to die, but when you're in jail for decades on end, death looks way better than if you weren't in jail. And I think a lot of people are forgetting about because they don't know how jail, and don't get me wrong, I don't know what jail is and I hope I never experience it. But from an outside perspective and from other stories I've heard, that death was better than being in jail any longer. And I've heard it from other sources, and you can look it up and you can see people's interviews on this matter. The second reason is, should we really hold the American justice system to a high regard? Don't get me wrong, criminals should be punished for their crimes. However, are the ones delivering the punishment on the same level or even worse than the people that they are judging, if you get what I mean? No matter what way you put it, justice in America doesn't mean anything anymore, and justice in the world doesn't mean anything in this sad reality. Judges, lawyers, government, police, military, and all the highest forms of justice in the world and that countries are formed on have a lot of corruption in their ranks. The regular civilian like me and you most likely will be victims, or this will happen to people we know, and we can simply basically just be bystanders. We've seen this come into fruition with the Black Lives movement in the early 2020s, but that doesn't even scratch the surface of what's been going on in these things that are supposed to keep us safe and form the principles of our country. There's been many cases of rape, fraud, crime, and many more things associated with the higher organizations that should be helping us, but this has been happening on a global scale, and not many people think about it, as the cop you see down the street could have done a lot way worse things than the person that they're arresting. And I want you to just think about that for a second. You can do very little research and find horrible cases of these people in the higher positions doing horrible stuff and not being convicted of it because of their status. Now, my third reason is not putting religion into fruition that much, but it is almost playing a god. Us as humans were able to give life by the of reproduction, but should we be able to take it away? I personally think no, unless there is a very serious situation, which most times it usually isn't. Life isn't a courtesy, plain and simple. And I think a lot of people have forgotten the value of life, as life is very something super sacred, as one person's life can change the entire world, if you think about it. Now, say you're being attacked and is either kill or be killed, then I feel like in that situation it's okay to take a life, as the only thing equal to another life is a life. Lives are not above each other except in quantities. But we need to be very careful on playing with life, as if we are the ones taking away lives, as if it's not needed, it's almost resembling a God passing judgment on if someone should die or still live, which I feel like is very scary if you think about it, as there's many people basically being gods. The prison system, the justice system are basically gods on this earth, and a lot of people do not think about that. Now, I also do prefer a form of structure instead of everyone just doing what they want, but we need to take into account that a lot of people have way too much power and we are just letting it happen, or we're not at least adverse on this topic, as this will affect us in the near future or will affect us sometimes in our life. Now with this, I will close the Omnillion section and move on to the affirmative side of this argument. Onto the affirmative section. The side that says that the death penalty should be abolished will argue many different points. The affirmative will say that the justice system is run in a poor fashion and with a lot of prejudice. For example, a black male that grew up extremely poor and is extremely poor now versus a rich white male, and they are both being charged by the same crime. We obviously know who's going to get the worst end of the deal in most cases. Obviously, the black man is surely screwed, even if he's probably wealthy, going against a poor white person. And there's a lot of different factors that make the prison system and justice system unfair, which the affirmatives will argue. All things happen in the justice system, which is mostly run by white males and follows their values as it is, and many people have to conform to it. However, it's not white people who are the problem. It is everyone as a whole not doing their part and having their own prejudice coming into play, as many people see humans as different value depending on what they are. Not many people think that the death penalty costs a lot of money to do, as it's cost almost $1 million just to have a few death penalties be executed, which a lot of people have forgotten that your tax money is being used to put these criminals to rest, and all for nothing, as there's many cost-effective ways to kill someone especially as the death penalty, as the death penalty is used almost as kind of a final say or make it memorable as someone is getting put to death. But in your tax money, which can be used for a lot of other things, and a lot of people in poverty-stricken places spend their money on putting these criminals to rest. Now, a lot of the affirmatives will also argue that the point of morality, even for the worst criminals, they shouldn't be killed. A lot of cases why the death penalty should be abolished includes this argument, as people on the affirmative usually stand on the morality and ethics spectrum when coming to these type of arguments. So overall, the affirmative has a very strong case that deals with a lot of different things on why the death penalty should be abolished. Onto the negative section. This side of the argument will say that the death penalty should not be abolished. The people on the negative side will argue more on the realistic spectrum and value of fairness. The main principle of this argument is, in simple terms, an eye for an eye. You kill someone, now it's you that should be killed or should die. A lot of people argue that the fairest way of doing things, and people do say that more people should get the death penalty, or at least don't mind killers and mass murderers getting assigned to the punishment. There are still other smaller reasons with the negative side. A huge reason is the aspect of fear. Most people do not want to die no matter who you are. With people getting killed for their crimes, they say that it will strike fear into people committing crimes that will lead to the death penalty. In all, people do say that it brings the most closure, as, for example, if you killed my friend, I expect you to die and suffer the same fate you gave to my friend. And that is the most viable way of closure. But many murderers get life sentences, and many families want their family member or friend's killer to be killed, or at least suffer a long time in jail. Overall, the negative has very good points, and though I do side mostly with the affirmative, I will say that the negative has more reasons to defend their side, and if we are taking morals out of the equation, the negative mostly wins in this argument, as even the justice system is obviously on the negative side, as the death penalty is still up and running in most states in the U.S. and still in the world. On to the research section. After a lot of research, here's what I have found. The links of the articles and different spreadsheets will be in the description of the video. In an article by deathpenalty.org, it states that the death penalty doesn't deter crime at all, or has very low chances of it actually really deterring crime based off of numerous studies that the article has found at their websites. And now looking at this, it does kind of make sense, as a lot of people don't really think about the death penalty when committing crimes, as most people aren't really doing those heinous crimes. And the second source to back up this information, named the amnesty.org, has said that it's a myth that the death penalty deters crime, which backs up the last piece of evidence from the article. And if you search up the same tagline, you'll find similar articles saying the same thing. But this article has also said that it's a myth that the death penalty affects drug usage and the amount of violent crimes. So it seems like the death penalty's aspect of causing fear kind of goes out the window with this evidence supported by many doctors and many people adverse in this topic. On to some new evidence. This is a survey from Pew Research Center that did multiple surveys with the following questions in mind. 6 out of 10 U.S. adults favor the death penalty or somewhat favor it to a degree, which is very close, as I've seen, with it. Which does make sense, as a lot of Americans aren't that religious or don't mind someone dying because of their crimes. It also said a majority of people have concerns about the fairness of the death penalty, which kind of contradicts the 6 out of 10 statement, or at least that's a lot of the affirmatives saying that they think the death penalty does have a lot of problems with it. On to the other parts of the article. The opinion on the death penalty varies with race, education, income, and a lot of other factors, as, for example, Asian woman that doesn't make a lot of money versus, let's just say, a Mexican man that makes a lot of money, most likely will have a different view on the death penalty, as it varies with education and different things, as there's different resources, different point of views from your upbringing, and sometimes even culture things that come into play, which does make a lot of sense. Now, on to another article. It stated that with phone polls, they've seen that the favorability of the death penalty has skyrocketed down in the past few years, and it's projected to keep on skyrocketing until we get to more people saying that they want the death penalty should be abolished. Sorry for that stutter. Now, I went to a spreadsheet, which I can't pronounce the website name, but here's the most intriguing information I found, which is kind of miscellaneous to this topic, but I think it should be stated at least. California, Florida, Texas, and Alabama, as well as North Carolina, have the most prisoners on death row in this current moment and in the U.S. history, I'm pretty sure. While Wyoming, Oregon, South Dakota, New Hampshire, and Montana have the least. And the ones with the most usually have well over 100. I'm pretty sure the North Carolina at least has 140, and the others just go up. And as well as the 5 I listed with the least have like under 5, I'm pretty sure. And looking back at it, yes, that is true. Another fact is since 1973, around 195 people have been released that were on death row after being proven innocent. This is likely because the long death penalty time, as it's usually for decades. In another graph I found, it states that of the people who have been executed, 55.8% of them are white, 33.9% are black, 8.4% are Latin Americans or Hispanics, and the remaining 1.9% being another race and ethnic group. With this research, I encourage you to pause this video or at least think for a bit. Here's the general consensus of this argument. I asked people from my school, looked on the internet, especially places like Reddit and Quora, and articles, and here's the most popular answers I found and the reasoning. For the most part, people did say that they think the death penalty shouldn't be abolished, but with a lot of tweaks that go with it, and a lot of things to fix. Many people agreed with the points of jail being a worse fate than death, and there should be good reasons for the execution. People said that serial killers for sure deserve it, but many people state it is only for serial killers and mass murderers or people who do around the same amount of heinous crimes. An interesting argument I found was that innocent people are being affected by the death penalty for being falsely accused. With this argument, a lot of people have disagreed or at least contented the point of this. Now, I can see a lot of people arguing this on the moral spectrum. However, as a realist, here is my opinion on the matter. Many of these things happened a long time ago, which does not change the magnitude of people getting executed for being falsely accused. Though it has greatly reduced through the years and will continue to decrease with this new technological age. Now I want you to pause for 30 seconds and with no internet help, name 3 people that have been executed via the death penalty that were innocent in the last decade. Now that you've done that and you've returned to the video, how did that go? You probably couldn't think of something off the bat. In all, with everything comes flaw, and many people say that is a sacrifice which I kind of have to stand on. It is messed up that some innocent people can be killed for being falsely accused, but I found that people view life in a different way, mostly of moral and religious differences, which I thought was also unique as people base their arguments on a lot of moral places, but also did see a lot of people get straight to the point on who should die and who shouldn't. I think it's probably one of the most unified topics, as I found many people roughly agree the same way, but have different reasons and opinions on smaller factors. I would also like to state that I found a lot of these from your average person, and not many high elite figures with all these degrees or notable people for their information. Simply because I feel like this country is built for the people, and I think that everyone's opinion should be held to an equal standard, no matter who it is. I would hold a teller's opinion to the matter as a person with a Nobel Prize or something. I know this is kind of off topic, but I think I need to formulate that, as that's how I usually base my arguments, on hearing everyone's point of view, no matter who you are. And I think a lot of people should think that way, but I can see why a lot of people would not. Now let's move on to the final two sections of this video, and let's move on to the summary. On to the summary. The death penalty is one of the most interesting and intricate problems in the justice system, which I feel like needs more attention. A lot of people don't know nearly half of what the process entails. I see this topic more favoring the negative side, saying that the death penalty should not be abolished, though I mostly side with the affirmative, and I can easily understand the points of both sides. However, what do you think? What is your take on the topic? Who knows, you may get this question in your real life, and hopefully with this video you can answer it. I think if you side more with the religious and moral views on situations, you would stand more with the death penalty being abolished. If you think more fair and get what you get point of view, you should side with the negative, saying that the death penalty should not be abolished. But overall, it really just depends as you as an individual and what I present you today. As for the complete and final answer, I think the answer for this should be it shouldn't be abolished, but it needs a lot of changing. The justice system is far from perfect, and I can't even call it alright. This is why it needs a lot of people to make a change, or at least announce the flaws of the justice system and the death penalty, and make fixes and changes happen to make it match its objective, which is the fairness of the people. Now, I'd want to thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. As this is my first video, I noticed I did kind of stutter a lot, and my editing won't be that good, but I hope to improve in the future, and I hope to still provide you with knowledge. I think I at least got my main point across of my side to the argument and other sides of the argument, and providing numerous pieces of information. So tune in either next week Monday or 2 weeks from now. I will announce it on my other pages like TikTok or YouTube, wherever you're coming from, which y'all should follow both of them. I don't want to be a beggar, but yeah, follow them. And on the next episode of season 1, called Questionable, we will discuss the topic, are trans people the gender that they say? Which I mean basically is a transgender woman, which is a man that transitioned from a female, an actual woman. So tune in next time and see my stance on the argument, and hopefully you can formulate your stance on the argument. Thank you again.